Why was UKIP so strong in Labour strongholds like Grimsby in the run-up to the 2015 election, or is the NHS actually collapsing, and if so, how and why? It's questions like that. So, you know, I had concrete questions. I did some quite laborious concrete research, and I asked people very specific questions. But I began to notice, and it was something that I'd already been interested in, but it really kind of came across in all the interviews I did, these very long interviews with, I mean, it's a really horrible expression, I hate using it, because we're all ordinary people, about their lives. And I noticed, I started to feel, okay, we've got this idea about what is happening in the world, and it can come in quite a rational, sort of enlightened way. It can come from reading academic texts, or being an academic, from reading sort of heavy-duty journalism and analysis about what's going on. You can come at the world trying to find out what's going on in that kind of analytical, semi-academic way. But I came to think more and more, well, everyone is a voter, and everyone has a representation of the world. And what is that? What is the nature of the way that people form their view of what has happened, their particular role in what is happening, the wider world? I began to think about that in terms of what people were saying to me, and eventually I began to think about it in terms of what I myself think, and I began to rather skeptically interrogate my own idea of what is happening. And I started to think about all the kind of the shorthand, all the symbols, all the ways in which you kind of fantasize the world, even as you're trying to understand it. So even though nobody actually mentioned to me the myth of St. George, in the same way that nobody actually started talking to me about Robin Hood, these two English folk legends that I've incorporated into these essays, even though nobody actually talked to me about them specifically, I felt that this was a way of describing an approach that people have towards understanding complex issues. I think even the most fervent supporters of Brexit would not deny that it was presented by its most optimistic backers as something that was quite straightforward, and as something that was essentially going to solve all of Britain's problems at a stroke. So rather than saying, oh yes, people are going around saying, yes, it's just like St. George and the Dragon, by framing it in terms of the St. George and the Dragon story, you put it in a way that I think corresponds to the way that people represent complex events. So yes, I have come to believe, not me personally, this is somebody, I'm some interviewee, I'm imagining, yes, I have come to think that this country is in a very bad state. I've come to place the blame for that in this one entity, which I've never personally met, because you can't, it's an abstract entity, it's the EU. But if we somehow slay this dragon in our lives, then by some process that's too complicated and tedious to analyze, everything will be better. Now, yeah, of course, if you put it like that, it sounds a bit patronizing. It sounds as if you're making people out to be fools. But I don't. There comes a point in the most sophisticated thinker's life when it does get down to these very, very simple myth-like representations of how the world is actually working.